From Nashville Public Radio, I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. Republican objections to political pardons in Tennessee, a tightening race in the 7th Congressional District, and new data on private school vouchers. It's our weekly Roundabout episode where we take a moment to think about the news together and take your calls with our panel. Today it's Maryam Abolfazli, Pat Nolan, and Shaka Mitchell. The phones are open for the whole hour. Stick around. We'll also get to some stories that are making us smile after the news. This is Nashville.
Sharing news and stories from the voices of Middle Tennessee. That's This is Nashville. Our show is made possible by Music City Prep Clinic. This is Nashville is in service to you. So if you have an idea for the show or feedback you'd like us to hear, leave us a voice message at 615-751-2500.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Former Vice President Dick Cheney's funeral is underway at the Washington National Cathedral. Some view Cheney as a polarizing political figure, including as a chief architect of the Iraq War post 9/11. But his daughter, former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, remembered him as a Republican lion who put country over party.
For him, a choice between defense of the Constitution and defense of your political party was no choice at all.
The late vice president became a fierce critic of President Trump's leadership, as was his daughter, former Representative Cheney, who was among the Republicans in Congress who said Trump should be held to account for his role in the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Europe's top diplomat says, to her knowledge, no one from the European Union was involved in the development of the latest reported Russia-Ukraine peace proposal drafted by the United States. Terry Schultz reports EU foreign ministers are meeting in Brussels with their support for Ukraine topping the agenda.
EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas says the bloc welcomes all attempts to find a negotiated solution to Russia's full-scale war on Ukraine, but she was skeptical about anything drafted without engaging the Ukrainian government or the Europeans, who would have to help implement such an agreement.
For any plan to work, it needs Ukrainians and Europeans on board. Also, we have to understand that in this war, there is one aggressor and one victim. We haven't heard of any concessions on the Russian side.
Polish Foreign Minister Radek Sikorski echoed concerns about the contents of the proposal, saying he hopes Ukraine would not be restricted in its ability to defend itself. For NPR News, I'm Terry Schultz in Brussels.
Walmart says price-sensitive shoppers are searching for value, and the company is getting those dollars. The retail giant is raising its financial forecast for the year. NPR's Alina Selyukh has details.
Walmart has drawn more higher-income shoppers over the past year and continue to do so in the latest quarter. Executives say they're seeing lower-income shoppers pull back a bit more, while middle-income spending is steady. Overall, Walmart sales grew 4.5% between August and October, with the holiday season described as off to a strong start. Executives say the company has had to raise some prices because of tariffs, especially on electronics, but generally the impact has been less than many expected. Walmart also announced it's moving its stock listing from the New York Stock Exchange to NASDAQ to reflect its growing digital operations. NASDAQ tends to have more tech companies and has rivals Amazon and Costco. Alina Selyukh, NPR News, Washington.
U.S. stocks are trading lower this hour, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average now down more than 200 points, or roughly 0.5% at 45,917. This is NPR News. The top Democrats in the House released a statement today calling for President Trump to delete social media posts that accuse Democrats of, quote, seditious behavior and suggested such behavior is, quote, punishable by death. Trump made a pair of posts on his site Truth Social in response to video posted by several lawmakers, including Representative Jason Crow, Chris Deluzio, Maggie Goodlander, and others. Lawmakers addressed members of the military and intelligence communities and said, quote, you can refuse illegal orders, repeating the phrase several times before saying you must refuse illegal orders. The child advocacy nonprofit called Fair Play has released an advisory. The group is warning people against buying AI toys this holiday season. NPR's Chloe Veltman reports.
Fair Play's advisory says playthings like AI-powered plushies and robots collect sensitive data and disrupt human relationships, among other harms. Rachel Franz is a Fair Play program director.
These can have long and short-term impacts on development, and it's ridiculous to expect young children to avoid potential harm here.
The advisory echoes the Public Interest Research Group's latest annual Trouble in Toyland report. The consumer watchdog's findings reveal how AI toys allow kids to chat about sexually explicit topics and have few parental controls.
That's NPR's Chloe Veltman reporting. The Dow's down 219 points, S&P's off 43, and the Nasdaq has fallen 210 points. I'm Lakshmi Singh, NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Bayer. Bayer is dedicated to delivering breakthroughs that save lives and feed the world using the scientific process. Learn more at sciencedelivers.com. This is NPR.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, working to help donors make more possible through the power of community giving. More at cfmt.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville, a Roundabout edition. We're taking your calls this hour to talk about the biggest news and pressing issues in Middle Tennessee. We'll get into Republican reaction to political pardons here in the state, new analysis of Tennessee's private school voucher program and schools that reject students who are queer or have a disability, a court rejection of the National Guard policing streets in Tennessee, a tightening of the race in Tennessee's 7th Congressional District, along with a few other items, and wrapping up the hour with a smile story or two. So stay tuned. If you've got a story that's warmed your heart or given you new hope in humanity, please hang with us and feel free to share it on the air. The number to call this hour is 615-760-2000. And don't worry, I'll hit you with it again so you can be reminded. If you're streaming video today at youtube.com/@WPLN, you can also leave a comment there, just right there in the chat. We'll try to work it into the conversation. Our panel today is ready to go. We welcome first-time panelist Shaka Mitchell, a senior fellow at the American Federation for Children, a lawyer, a school reform advocate, previously a regional leader for the charter school network Rocket Ship. Welcome to This is Nashville.
Thanks, Blake. Love to be here.
Pat Nolan feels right at home in that seat, but also first time, at least on this sort of roundabout panel, but he was at News Channel 5 for many years. Back in the day, a WPLN reporter when the station was just starting to cover news. Welcome, Pat.
Good to be back.
And Maryam Abolfazli joins us again, a former candidate for Congress in the 5th District, founder of the civic engagement nonprofit Rise and Shine TN. Glad to have you back.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Well, let's start with pardon news this week. Former House Speaker Glenn Cassida and his aide Cade Cothran were both pardoned by the Trump administration before having to serve any of their prison time. They were found guilty of corruption with a scheme that funneled official mail business to a fake company. There's a lot more to it, but that in one sentence anyway. The leaders of the state legislature disagree with the pardons. Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally, a man of few words a lot of times, simply said it was incorrect and that he would not have advised the president to issue pardons. House Speaker Cameron Sexton told WBIR that he will not turn a blind eye to corruption.
We need to make sure that if there's public corruption, we're going to get rid of it. If the president wants to pardon him afterwards or someone else wants to pardon him afterwards, so be it.
So to our listeners, were the pardons warranted? President Trump's team said Cassida and Cothran were over-prosecuted for a minor issue. You can join us on air with your thoughts, 615-760-2000. Pat, as somebody who's been following and analyzing this situation from the beginning, are you surprised to see the current Republican leadership of the state legislature critiquing the president?
Well, yes, because this president does not like critiques and usually pushes back on them. But I think in this case, the current leadership in the legislature replaced Cassida and his aide. I mean, they were the people in charge before they came in charge, and I'm not sure that Cassida and Sexton were on each other's Christmas card lists before that happened. So I noticed he was somewhat measured in what he said in the comments you just reported there from WBIR. So But, no Republicans have been speaking out against the president until maybe the last few months at the most. And you're starting to see that now. How far it's going to go, I don't know. I mean, who would have thought you'd seen the kind of thing on the Epstein thing where all, people just been against it, and then suddenly Trump comes up and says, I don't care, go ahead and vote for it. Now, that may scramble your brains when you hear that, but it goes to show that Trump can still move votes even in strange ways.
Strange ways. Maryam, do these pardons put Republicans in Tennessee in an awkward position? Because they were fairly unified, against, maybe that Cassida and Cothran should be prosecuted.
I think that's what you're hearing, right, in the leadership, is that everyone was pretty clear, everyone's unified that this was wrong, and it should be, there should be a crime, and someone should serve for it, or they should all serve for it. And to see our president, who generally people have supported on the Republican side, pardon this, it's so absolutely egregious in my mind of just favoritism and nothing else. There's no principle behind it at all. They can make up one, but there isn't one because everybody here knows what happened and how wrong it was. And the other thing that is really important is that this was a long process. This took a while to get to the persecution and everything. And so to suddenly pardon it after all that work, all that investigation, all that, everybody had to come together to really make this work in a very, very American, democratic, due process kind of way. And I feel like the pardon to me as a Tennessean, as a Nashvilleian, and I'm sure maybe probably to a lot of Republicans that I speak to, it's a slap in all of that, not just a specific case. So it feels very icky, I'm sure, to have to try to square that hole a little bit by saying, yes, I support Trump, but I sure as hell don't like this.
Well, if you got thoughts on this, the number is 615-760-2000. Pat, there is another person involved here who is facing time, former State Representative Robin Smith, who cooperated with prosecutors, got a lesser sentence. I think was also seeking a pardon, at least according to the Chattanooga Times-Free Press. Do we know why she might have been passed over? Was it because she helped prosecutors? That's where my mind goes.
That could be a reason. The other reason is she may not have had a close friend of the president intervening on his behalf. In other words, I think one of them had help from the country music star, and the other one had, I think, one of the president's sons.
Yes. Well, there were connections.
Can you help? Maybe she didn't have that kind of connection. She has filed a brief for lawyers, I think, sometime yesterday or this week, basically saying, well, if the other ones are getting, this is to the judge to say, well, if the others are getting pardons, you ought to at least knock off our jail time and just put us on probation.
Yes.
Now, I don't know how that's going to go, but
does the lawyer in the room know if that makes a difference? If other people in a similar scheme get pardons, that it matters?
I see you looking at me, Blake, and I'm the pretend lawyer in the room, enough to be dangerous anyway. I think the thing that folks often forget about lawsuits is that every lawsuit really is a personal thing. And I think that's some of what you're seeing reflected by the Speaker of the House and by the Lieutenant Governor, actually. In this prosecution, it's personal to them in a way that it isn't to the president, right? I mean, it was the lawmakers who were also taken advantage of in this whole scheme, right?
Oh.
They were sort of
they spent money with a fake company.
They did.
And they felt wronged.
That's right. And so I think that breach of public trust wasn't just to, say, taxpayers. It was also to the lawmakers themselves, right, who were sort of didn't know who they were dealing with because of the deception. And so I think that you're seeing some of that. You're seeing them take it personally. Whether or not those two pardons are going to matter for former Representative Smith, it's anybody's guess.
Yeah.
The other thing, Blake, is if you have a long history of what goes on Capitol Hill, when the Lieutenant Governor he's been a member for many years, and when he was in the House, he actually wore a wire during one of the earlier prosecutions, and he was the hero for putting some lawmakers behind bars that needed to be. But he took a big risk to be wearing a wire going in and having conversations with these folks. I mean, they talked to him. He didn't make them talk.
Right.
But I can see why he would take a bad feeling about that, because he put his career, maybe even his life, on the line to do that. And I think he'd like to see the process work a little better than this one did.
All right. Well, we can pick this back up if anyone wants to call in and talk about it, but we'll move on to the 7th Congressional District. I see, Pat, you still got your voting sticker on. You must live in the 7th District.
Yeah, by about one house. In fact, when I first went to vote, when they changed all the district lines, they gave me a ballot for the 5th District. And then they found out later, no, the line is in a cul-de-sac right beside me. And then they said, well, that's too bad. Your vote won't count. And I thought, why? I didn't do anything wrong. You guys are the ones that gave me the 5th District ballot. I didn't. But,
well, listen, for all those out there who have struggled understanding what congressional district you are in Middle Tennessee, even Pat Nolan has run into trouble.
It's real.
Okay?
It is so real.
It really is. So early voting is underway right now in the 7th Congressional District. If this is news to you, well, you've still got some time, but not much. It's a special election. Very odd timing on this race. Election Day is on a Tuesday, but it's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving in December. We're all trying to read the tea leaves. A lot was made this week by a slight change in how the Cook Political Report rates this race. It went from solidly Republican to likely Republican. So pretty small, but the district hasn't really changed, Maryam. What would make it any less Republican today than it was a few weeks ago?
The special election, just who knows about it and who comes out and who feels a certain way right now. I think it's a lot about timing. We're in a post-Trump world right now. People are very frustrated.
Post-Trump?
I mean, post-Trump winning, right? Sorry. I mean,
I thought you might have a point to make.
If you remember like 2018, 2017 versus 2016 or 2025 versus 2024, it's a different world regarding that person. And so what will make it less Republican is the frustrations, I'm going to sit this one out feeling. I see that in some Republican blogs and posts like, if this is the one y'all are thinking of sitting out, don't. The panic on their side, obviously. And then just our great get out the vote kind of effort, playing off of those frustrations, panic, anger, all that stuff that's happening right now.
Well, when it's a special election, you have to really push people to get out because they're not used to going out that date. By the way, early voting continues until the 26th, and then the election's on December 2nd. Now, people need to realize this is one of those years where there's Thanksgiving, and then all of a sudden the following Monday comes, and you don't have extra week to go Christmas shopping. It's already December.
Yeah. Well, So this thing is right around the corner. Are you in the 7th Congressional District? I'm not talking to Pat anymore. I'm talking to the listener. How'd you make your decision? Do you feel that there has been some sort of shift? What do you see? And your on-the-ground reports are incredibly helpful when data is so limited like this special election. Number to call in, 615-760-2000, or you can jump in the chat on our video stream. It's youtube.com/@WPLN.
If the Democrat has any chance in this race to get close or to win, she's got to do very well in Davidson County. In fact, she's got to get her best margins here. And looking at the numbers that the Banner reported this morning, in Davidson County, we've already voted through yesterday about 8,000 voters in early voting. Do that same number of days of early voting back in the primary, we'd only voted about 3,000. So we're well over 2-1 in that. The number has to be bigger, period, because unfortunately some of these people in these outlying counties, the Democratic candidate, if you look at other elections, have been getting as much as 80-20 getting beat. So she's going to have to do very well in Nashville.
Yeah, I think those numbers that Pat cites are really important, right? That's the data that's going to carry the day for one of the candidates, certainly. But I think, Maryam might have had a bit of a Freudian slip there, right, when you talked about sort of being post-Trump. Yeah. I think oftentimes, especially in a special election like this, what you see is some of the national news and those national vibes, if you will, that starts to affect even the pollsters. And so I think some of what's happening is, you just saw a Democrat win the governor's race in Virginia. You saw Mamdani win in New York. And I think the vibes right now are politically blue. Whether or not that changes anything on the ground outside of Davidson County,
it's like, have they been to Dixon County lately? They're not checking. Yeah. Go ahead, Pat.
Well, Van Epps has even changed the tone of his the
it
TV
does
ads
seem that way to me too.
Well, he's talking about all the issues that the affordability that never was independent. And he talked about Trump all the time. The first ad he came out after that, Trump's name was not even mentioned in it. Before it was, I'm going to send me up to because I'll keep the president. I'll protect the president. He's not doing that anymore.
Yeah. Shaka, what do you make of former Vice President Kamala Harris stumping in Nashville for the Democrat, State Representative Afton Bain?
Yeah, well, I think it's a very similar dynamic on, for the Democratic Party as what Pat just described in the Republican Party, right? We know that in a general election as compared to a primary election, the messages tend to moderate because you're now not going after the base anymore. right? Certainly, Afton Ben was going after the base and getting her folks jazzed up. Well, now you're in a general election. You know how you're not going to get folks fired up in Dixon? By bringing in the former vice president and getting her, sort of parading her around. That's my sense for it. I just think that that's actually not a winner. I mean, It doesn't make sense to me that you bring in a failed national candidate to help you in a national race. Why does that make sense?
Well, she came in to promote her book. She didn't come in to make a campaign appearance.
She was going to do something at the Ryman, I think, and sort of tack this on it.
She had a book thing over there.
Yeah.
And look, she did go to one of the events where they were kicking off some of their door knocking stuff. So she did some support. So I wouldn't say that she is refusing to endorse Afton Ben, but she's not getting out in front and leading the parade.
Well, I don't think it's her refusing. I think, and again, I have no inside intel on this, but I suspect it's the campaign that's saying thanks, but no thanks.
Well, she was at the Ryman, but left before the candidate, before the vice president got there. So, I mean, and that was probably, I don't know if that was deliberate, but that's how it worked out. It looked like a snub. So I'll let them explain it, but I think it gets kind of sticky.
Maryam, you have knowing eyes over there. Any inside intel?
I will just say, it is tricky. Kamala, we have in CD7, there is a strong black vote in Davidson County. That has been a conversation this whole time. Vincent Dixie did a great job in the primary in Davidson County, honestly, and won Davidson County in the primary. So that is a real thing. So I think strategically speaking, you as a white candidate are trying to figure out how you're going to get that vote out. And someone like Kamala Harris, who enjoys strong support among that community, is a great pull for that. But you're exactly right that maybe that doesn't play well in other counties. But let's be honest, like I don't know how much you're trying to flip Republicans in this race. You're just trying to get Dems
you think it's
out.
Sort of Davidson
you're
or
just
bust.
trying to get Dems out. You're exactly like you're not trying to. And Afton's, I feel like, been running a campaign where she's not trying to pretend she's not who she is. So you're going to vote for that.
She did make a comment that says, "I'm a radical girl" or something like that. I'm a radical person.
I don't know, but
and
they're
using it it's a very snippet. You can take a little thing out of anybody of what they say and put it on the air and make it look like it's really something it's not. But the Republicans are now doing that. And there are a lot of outside groups suddenly coming in, putting in ads too, which you didn't see. Well, you did see some for Van Epps in that one, but they weren't aimed at other candidates at that point.
It is a different vibe, I will say. You have Republican candidates from Marcia all the way down speaking about their opponents for the first time. That was not a tactic last year at all. The game was to stay quiet.
Oh, you're saying that Van Epps is talking about...
Everybody is. Everybody is. Marcia talks about Afton more than anything else.
Senator Marcia Blackburn.
Yes. And so you can feel a very different context and environment this year than last year.
I'd also point out that Congressman Green didn't like the way his district was redrawn in the first place. He's run up there twice.
Who stepped down in July.
Talking about the seats vacant. He was not very happy about it. Didn't like the mix of where he knew it was a Republican district, but he didn't like the way it was. And everybody's always thought since those three new districts were put together that the one, if they were ever going to flip, the one who flipped first would probably be the 7th district.
Yes, but it did not in the last go-round when it was Green versus the former mayor of Nashville. But we'll see what happens, and it's going to come in quick, just a couple days after Thanksgiving. So stay tuned. We need to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to chat about the release of the Epstein files, how Tennessee Republicans are responding, and we'll dive into new analysis on private school vouchers in Tennessee. And we'll take your calls, 615-760-2000. You can also weigh in the chat at our video stream. It's youtube.com/@WPLN. Stay with us. This is Nashville.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners. And Amazon, proud sponsor of WPLN's daily show, This Is Nashville. Engaging our differences so we can discover our unity. More on Amazon's community work at aboutamazon.com. And Tennessee State Parks, with a variety of getaway accommodations, including cabins and lodges, guests can experience the great outdoors without giving up modern amenities. Learn more at tnstateparks.com. And Christmas celebration with Music City Chorus and Friends featuring Avi Kaplan Sunday, December 14th at 7 p.m. at Belmont's Fisher Center. An evening with Music City Chorus, Avi Kaplan, and more. Tickets available at musiccitychorus.org.
I'm Jeremy Hobson. Next time on The Middle, artificial intelligence is changing everything, and some of the people who built it have taken to calling it the last invention.
This is it. The world as you know it is over. Completely done. It's not about to be over. It's over.
We want to know what you think. Does AI excite you, or are you worried it'll destroy us all? That's next time on The Middle.
Tonight at 8 on 90.3 WPLN News.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville, a Roundabout edition. You know, I wish the mics had just been on, for the last 90 seconds. But we'll get to some of this. The best stuff happens when the mics are off. But listen, it's our Roundabout, and we're talking about the biggest news issues that are kind of front and center for folks in Middle Tennessee, and one that is certainly unavoidable for anyone. You got kids in the back of the car listening to NPR. They're going to ask, "What are the Epstein files? What are the Epstein files?" And Maryam's going to give us some help on how to handle that. But the U.S. Justice Department looks like it's going to release files from its investigation into Jeffrey Epstein in the next month. Congress passed this law, forcing the White House to act. President Trump signs the law. We'll jump into, just kind of how folks are responding. Our Roundabout panel includes Maryam Abolfazli, Shaka Mitchell, and Pat Nolan. And we're taking your calls on this issue and others. 615-760-2000 is the number. We talked about Senator Marsha Blackburn a moment ago, but, she really has been talking for the last year about releasing these files, even when it kind of put her at odds with folks in the White House, and now this sort of seems to be happening. Pat, she is running for Tennessee governor, and even was when she was talking about this. Is she trying to tell anything to voters by being so vocal on this issue over the last year?
Well, I mean, this is an issue that's been going, as you mentioned, for a long time, and
right.
And I think the president and others were hoping, particularly during the shutdown and everything else, that Congress would go home. And the House went home for like over a month. They didn't meet at all.
Right.
And they thought it would kind of fade away. Well, this is one that usually issues like that do fade away, but this one has not. In fact, it's as strong right now in general for people being upset about it. And we'll see where this goes from here. They've got 30 days to release that stuff, and then we'll see what's released. How much is redacted? How much is, well, I'm sorry, we can't get into that because we have these new investigations going on in the Democrats or anybody else that was involved with Epstein. This could be another backlash if the president and the attorney general and others suddenly decide, well, we're going to keep trying to do a rear guard action to keep anything from happening with this or actually having to release anything.
Well, Maryam, this is a point of personal privilege because I'm wondering if you have a way that you may be talking to children about this issue, because it's like this thing is going to keep coming up now. And I have an 11-year-old who keeps asking, well, what is it? And my answer is never satisfying enough. How are you talking to kids?
So I don't know if I can satisfy an 11-year-old. I talked to my son about it this morning because he heard it on NPR accidentally. And I did refer to Marvel, but if your kid has not seen all the Marvel movies, including Black Widow, where Dracoff has all the Black Widows in the world, I referred to that one. But I will just say I'm pretty honest with him. So I said there is a really bad guy that did really bad things to girls, and he'll say like what? Just really bad, awful, hurtful things to lots of them, and this is what I said. And the government has released some of those emails. Once he went to jail, they got all his emails. He knows what an email is. And in those emails, a lot of powerful people are named, including our president. And our president is scared now because he was named. And he doesn't want, because what Autumn heard was President Trump calling that reporter Piggy this week. And he said, why did he say that? And I was like, he's very scared because he's been named in something that's really bad. And he doesn't want to be affiliated with that. So I just said there's a man that did really bad things, and he did it with a lot of different powerful people. And one of them is our president.
Well, Shaka, are you surprised at how much bipartisan approval there was of this?
I'm not sure that I'm surprised. I mean, I think if I'm being hopeful, it's in that there are still some things about which we have such shared values that we just say, hey, this is just so unconscionable, right? I mean, what we already know of Epstein and that saga is just unconscionable, right? When you're thinking about the victims. And so part of me likes to think, hey, there is still some element of politics that's not merely performative. Like, let's figure out how to get justice for victims, and that should not be a partisan issue. I think it speaks to the fact that when members, as Pat was referring to, were home over this long break, over the shutdown, I think a lot of them were hearing from their constituents at home, like, hey, what's up with these files? And I think that's Republicans and Democrats. And so I think that they were hearing it and had to take some action, because nobody wants to be on the side, to Maryam's point, of having the power to be a good guy and not be the good guy.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier that Trump's already knows he can still move vote, because he moved all these votes from the no column to the yes column. And in the Senate, it shut everybody up. Nobody was against it. But that doesn't mean he can't still do that if he needs to on other issues. But he gave him a mulligan, if to use a golf term on that.
Okay. Well, if you'd like to chime in on this, 615-760-2000 is the number. Let's move to vouchers. Tennessee's private school vouchers have proven very popular this year. This is where you get about $7,000 to help pay private school tuition. There were 20,000 vouchers up for grabs this year, and more than or nearly twice as many people wanted them. A lot of demand. Already discussions about expanding next year, which I'm sure the legislature will take up very quickly in when their session reconvenes. But this week we also got an analysis from the Nashville Banner that put some meat on the bones of an argument that vouchers would go to schools that discriminate essentially against some students. In this case, it's students who identify as LGBT or have a disability. While more than 170 eligible schools publish inclusion disclaimers, many quietly remove protections for sexual orientation or disability, and dozens explicitly enforce their rules, ranging from banning same-sex relationships or expelling openly gay or transgender students. Disability access is similarly inconsistent. Some schools offer accommodations. Many reserve the right to reject students based on staffing limits or the severity of needs. So in the room, we've got Shaka, who is front and center on this issue. So I'd love to get you to weigh in. Like, do you think the state should ensure private schools that take these public funds don't exclude students in this way?
Yeah, so I'll give you maybe two ways or a couple ways of a few ways of thinking about this. If your question, should the state try to enforce that private schools do a certain thing, would frankly be unconstitutional.
You're saying because they're private schools?
Because they're private schools, and the thing to really keep in mind, and this is, I think, critical, really, is that the Education Freedom Scholarship Program, it's not a private school scholarship program. It's a parent choice program, right? Meaning it gives money to families who then choose schools that align with their values, which is just the same as when we give food stamps to families and they buy kosher food. That's not support of Judaism or religion, right? That's supporting a family who then makes choices as to what they do with those funds. And so in that regard, the Supreme Court has said you can't limit what these institutions do and whether or not people can access their government available funds at a school that aligns with their values.
I mean, there are quite a few differences there, but one that comes to mind is, the money goes directly to the schools, right? It's a little different than...
Well, it's directed by parents.
Yeah.
But it's only participating schools. So it's
they
not
have a
all
choice.
Schools.
It'd be like a grocery
it's
store
school
choosing
choice,
to participate.
If you ask me, yeah.
Well, but if you think about the system that currently exists, sort of absent a choice program, right? And the Banner even talks about schools a private school that is specifically for students with special needs. It talks about a school here in Nashville, Templeton Academy, which I've visited a number of times and referred students there. It's a school that is friendly to LGBTQ students, right?
There's the other side of it as well that are very open.
So if you think about a student, the students who falls in one of those two categories, without that program, they have one option: their zone school.
Or their lottery school.
If that school doesn't work, then they have then what do they do?
Well, there's a lot of, charter school, one of your schools that you helped start.
Okay, but this is, but those still have lists, right? Those have waiting lists and et cetera. If you are a kid and you live in Jolton, there's not charter schools up in Jolton. You don't have many options.
There's not a lot of private schools throughout Tennessee that can take vouchers either.
I think now you're up to 175 schools out of 250. So the vast majority of private schools are participating, and that's
but they're
in the
not
first
in all
year.
the rural areas. They're not in all,
but think about, Maryam, what we're saying. We're saying that when a student currently has only one option, that's better than them having the possibility of having more. That math doesn't add up.
Sorry, I just feel like it's really misleading. I understand that logic, certainly, but what do we mean by that? Because the vouchers are $6,000, $7,000. If the other school that the option is 12 or 20, then again, not an option. If the school does not accept LGBTQ kids, not an option. If the school doesn't accept kids with disability, also not. So to say that it's another option is to certain people for certain things,
well,
right?
I think as the argument,
whereas
sort of
public school is an option to anybody.
Well, I think except that you have so many people who want out of those, as the demand clearly showed, right? You had 40,000 people sign up for this program.
And in other states,
almost
you
immediately.
have that uptake and you have that dropout very quickly within 2.5 years is what the data shows.
I'd love to see that data.
Well, and a lot of those, I guess we don't know whether a lot of those folks are people who already attend.
We do know that.
Schools,
I think
right?
the data showed that.
No, we
actually
don't
don't
have
vouchers
that data.
already have children in private schools.
They're
not
eligible,
changing.
but we don't know those numbers.
Yeah. If there are a lot of ideas being shared in here. If you'd like to chime in on this conversation, the number is 615-760-2000. Have you had a good experience thus far with this program? Do you have some ways you'd like to see it improve? Let us know. 615-760-2000. Maryam, I'm kind of wondering, it seems like private school vouchers are quite popular. We've even had people on the show who are kind of fundamentally opposed to them, but they're like, if the money's there, I'm going to use it. Mm-hmm. Do you expect the debate over vouchers to change in the coming years, to changing the program rather than thinking we're not going to do this anymore?
No, I think that it's expensive, and the states that have taken it on still have a really big debate going on about like how we're going to pay for this. That we see across the country. We also see did it work? So a lot of times, and Florida is where I got that number, and you can check me for sure. But a lot of pop-up schools come as a result of this, and a lot of schools that do not deliver on their promises. And so you see this drop-off. And then the other thing that you see is—
When you say drop-off, are you saying that
so you jump on it,
and then
you get the voucher, you go to the school, and within 2 or 3 years, I believe, you go back to the public school. And the public school has to work to get you back caught up academically, because you usually choose a school for other reasons, whereas like belonging, ideological, whatever it might be. The STEM and the performance of voucher schools is not better than public schools nationally.
But I think that's an interesting point that Maryam raises. If parents are choosing those schools for belonging, identity, other reasons, here we were just talking about families, not having enough options for belonging, identity, et cetera. So it can't be both ways, right? When we're giving parents choices, they're going to choose. Some are going to choose because of academics. Some are going to choose because of some values, whether that's religion, whether or not it's other things. Some are going to choose because of safety. And the reality is that we spend a whole lot of money, and this is why I think the momentum is going to continue to build for parent choice, because we are still spending a lot of money on schools that a lot of families would say here in Nashville and across the state are just not serving them well. And so that, as long as that's the case, this debate's not going anywhere.
Let's quickly go ahead to the phones. We've got several folks calling in on this issue. Steve in Murfreesboro, you're on This Is Nashville. What do you got for us?
I want to say that our country was built on public schooling. And if you are dissatisfied with public schools, then jump in and elect school board members, county commissioners, state representatives, state senators that will carry forth with the ideas that you think will improve public schools. Don't take money away, but keep public schools strong.
Steve, appreciate that. I'm it obviously takes a while for those things to happen. Maryam, any thoughts for Steve?
Yeah, I think that it is important to be honest and have an honest conversation. Yes, public schools have been frustrating for a ton of people. I'm a public school parent. I'm not going to say it's perfect. But I think the big thing about it is that it is meant for everyone, and it is meant to be funded. It has to be funded to work. And teachers have to be making a living wage and don't need to be taking on second jobs. All of it has to work for it to work well. And we need to continue to test it. But what the data shows is that these alternatives do not academically provide what the public schools are currently providing.
I'd say that's false. In Florida, actually public school students who are have greater exposure to competition from the choice program have a higher college attendance rate. Public school students have a higher attendance rate, right? So it's working for even the students who remain in the program. There's 500,000 students in private choice programs in Florida.
And again,
it's a pretty big deal.
It is, I have heard when I was at the legislature during the special session for vouchers, when I was talking to reps, it is very much about, I want them to go to a Christian school. I want them to go to a place that have values. And that is fine, but that is not the purpose of public education. And it's not the purpose of public resources being used for that.
Steve, I really appreciate your phone call. We're going to squeeze in one more call before our break. Tara in Gallatin, you're on This Is Nashville. Talk to us about vouchers.
Thank you so much. I have a child that is in public school, and two quick questions that I have. The first one is, I always hear a lot of talk about how great it is to have the voucher to be able to send your child to a school outside their zone school. But I don't always hear a lot about how we can enhance our zone schools, because are we taking money away or allocating money for a voucher program that could be used to fund some of the gaps that are so clear and obvious to anyone who has a child in a public school? And my second point is, since these voucher schools can have these exclusionary policies to children with disabilities, is that going to raise the proportion potentially of children with disabilities, which of course have sometimes a higher economic burden on a school district? Is that going to raise the proportion of those children being concentrated in the public schools? Thank you.
Tara, thanks for this call. Shaka, I'm wondering if our experience with charter schools in recent years is any help in sort of figuring out what the future looks like with vouchers here, with some of those issues Tara brings up.
Well, I think it's instructive in terms of looking at parent demand, right? You see a lot of demand for charter schools we've seen in Nashville, and they have grown over the years. But where those really differ is that charters, and as you know, I used to be a part of multiple charter networks. Charters still have a lot of the government, bureaucracy, frankly, and that district schools have to deal with.
Yep.
And when I would talk to some of my district school counterparts, they would say, well, we could get results that you do if we didn't, if we had more freedom. And I would sort of say, yeah, so we should all have more flexibility. So I'm actually all for less bureaucracy in the public school system, but I don't see that happening at the state or certainly at the local level anytime soon.
Maryam, you want to tie a bow on this before a break?
I think the accountability with bureaucracy, everyone, we were in this anti-government, anti-bureaucracy phase, and I feel like we were making a comeback because the accountability, the reporting, the non-discrimination, all that is really, really important for a kid like mine and for kids that have disabilities. I have so many moms that I've worked with in organizing that tried all the fancy private schools, took out debt to do it, but could not get their kids with disability the education that they can get with all of its flaws in the public school system. So we cannot defund our public education for however much people want to go and, gate themselves off in different schools and whatever they want to do. We cannot defund public education because it is the basis of our country. And so and the amount of debt that Arizona and all these places have gone into, constantly funding more voucher schools and parents being happier because of XYZ, it still doesn't get to the point of, are we educating our kids and can everyone go to school without being discriminated against?
I would point out that the bill that was passed by the legislature this year said they were going to hold harmless. In other words,
Right.
local school
Right.
boards
But
are not going to
funding.
lose money
But-
from it. Now, that's not forever, but
It's not.
at least for this next year or two. So.
Just for a couple of years.
All right. Well, is there more to say on this topic? You bet there is, but we're going to leave it there for now. One more break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about two things: teaching hate and finding common ground. And we'll also keep taking your calls. Stay with us. This is Nashville.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Renewal House, providing care, connection, and recovery programs for women and their children. Learn more at renewalhouse.org.
And Harpeth Hall, offering a school experience designed to teach girls in grades 5 through 12 to think critically, lead confidently, and live honorably. Learn more at harpethhall.org.
WPLN is giving you a chance to win tickets to see your favorite artists in concert and explore new music and events. Visit the WPLN giveaway page at wpln.org/giveaways.
In Nashville, more people work in the music industry per capita than any other city in the world. Music Citizens is our podcast about those people and the work that they do. Episode 5 is about Kim Bowie. She signs bands for a living, doing A&R. Sounds pretty cool.
A lot of people think, well, I love music, I have good taste, I love going to clubs, I love singing music. Well, okay, great. It's a lot more than that.
Music Citizens, The Tastemaker, airs tomorrow at 6:30.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville, a Roundabout edition. We're wrapping up. Our time is short. In the studio, Maryam Abolfazli, Shaka Mitchell, Pat Nolan. We're going to talk about two things as we wrap up this hour. And one of them was one of the more disturbing news stories that I have seen in recent years. And after I watched, I emailed Phil Williams directly and just said, I was disturbed. Amazing reporting. But there's this neo-Nazi who News Channel 5 investigative journalist Phil Williams has been face-to-face with on the courthouse steps, on the Metro front lawn at some point, but also has kind of a batch of reporting out this week that shows how this guy connects with kids online, spewing some of the most hateful things you have heard, pointing these military-style weapons at the screen, telling teens and tweens to prepare for a race war. It is as chilling and more as what I describe here. Worth a watch when you're in the right mindset, frankly. Have you seen it? You got some thoughts? Share them right here, 615-760-2000. Maryam, you were actually on a panel with Phil kind of responding to some of what he found. How you feeling about that?
I feel like I have thick skin, been in war zones, but that was definitely one of the hardest things to sit and watch the whole thing from start to finish.
Yeah.
I was crawling out of my skin. I did scream and cry, I think, at one point. I don't talk about evil much, but that's the only word that came to my mind the next morning after I woke up. It was just pure evil.
Yeah.
He's clearly monetizing this for his own financial gain. So that seems like a pretty strong motivation. I do, unfortunately, I do recommend that we all watch it as a community, not just parents, but as just neighbors and family. It is, I'm sorry, and you should be in the right mind, and I don't hope to trigger or anybody, but it is online and it is heinous, like you said, and what he did to the children during those short conversations was awful to watch.
He's like ridiculing them sometimes because he's.
Oh, he went after a mixed child.
Well, can you explain that?
I think that's the one where I lost it the most. But basically, he uses all the vile racist words, and when he's with white kids, he sort of says, "Right? Aren't you with me?" You know, this type of thing. Also, does the Hitler salute and all that stuff. But then when he got a mixed child on there, he basically had the child admit self-hatred.
Yeah.
So it's awful.
Yeah.
So anyways, he's really preying on fertile ground there in a variety of ways. He had girls on there, and he kind of dresses up. It's really creepy, actually. He dresses up. He's, 30 something. He dresses up, like unbuttons his first two buttons, kind of, I guess, tries to look like a hot boy in a way. And so he's got some girls on there that are teenagers that maybe there's some weird dynamic happening there. It's just, he's preying on all kinds of fertile ground. It should be regulated on a million ways. You shouldn't be able to even have an assault weapon like that. It should be regulated in terms of internet service providers should not even be allowing that. It should be regulated in terms of you cannot be threatening or abusing children like that. And we as family and community need to love on our children as much as possible so that they're not fertile ground for this.
Yeah, if you've got a response to this, the number is 615-760-2000. And you may just be sighing right along with Maryam here. But Pat?
Well, one of the things I found interesting is the most recent story I saw Phil do earlier this week was that as he has gone and found out where are these things, who's hosting these sites, who's paying for these sites, some of them appear to be coming from people that are involved in the tech companies. And as Phil has gone back to those companies to ask questions about it, they don't call him back. They're not talking to him, but those sites have gone down in some cases. So if there's a good thing out of this is that when you show some light about this, like disinfectant sunshine can have a lot to do with changing that. And so thank goodness Phil Williams is around here doing that because he is by far the best investigative reporter I've ever seen or worked with. Now, it's still serving for me. I worked at Channel 5, but he is really, really good. I think it was the Covenant School thing that got him interested in it because the kid that was involved with
I believe it was the shooting at Antioch.
It was at Antioch. That wasn't Covenant. I'm sorry, it was the Antioch.
Yeah.
And I think there's
some sort of tie there, yeah.
Yeah, there is. I mean, because the kid started showing signs of being in self-hatred. And I think that probably came from someplace. It didn't come from
online communities were a strong part in that.
Yeah.
I will say, yes, I think that Phil's been holding the ISPs and the websites accountable, but it has to go, because he can bounce around forever, so it has to go, And the other thing that I think you're right, Pat, is that as painful it is for us to watch this, shining light on it, we need to know what's happening online. And I think we all are in a generation where we're trying to regulate that for our children, but it's really hard because the social pressures are so high to have your phone, to be online and all this stuff, but also hope that bad things aren't happening, and they are.
And they're still trying to define exactly where the lines are in terms of First Amendment rights, because there are some things you can do and some things you can't do, but exactly where that line is getting more and more difficult to do with AI and everything else coming in.
Yeah. Well, let's take one call on this topic. Alice in Murfreesboro, you care to weigh in? Alice from Murfreesboro, you're on the show. You want to weigh in?
Yes. As I just told you, I agree with the person there on the panel that this man is vile and horrible. It ought to be regulated. And the worst thing that Phil told us was that this vile man plays a disclaimer at the beginning saying that underage children should not be on there, and he blames their parents for allowing them to get on it. So there ought to be regulation, and he is. He's nothing but evil. I agree with your panel.
Yeah. Well, Alice, I appreciate the call, and we've probably dropped the mic on that, and but it has put a cloud in the room with us here, as there are clouds outside today. So the mood is right. But we're going to lift you up as we round out the hour here. Most of us do feel like personal values are under attack. Shaka was writing about this recently, about the battleground civility poll that asks people to rate division on 0 to 100. 100 is like the edge of civil war. And that number a couple years ago was at 73. Is it higher now? I don't know. But it's one of the inspirations for his new project called Come Together Music. Shaka, how does listening to shared playlists help us heal our divides?
Yeah, thanks, Blake. And, coming on the heels of that last story, I think we could all use something to lift us up a little. And I think it's appropriate because we're in Music City. Really, the gist is pretty simple. I think that music has got a power to deepen existing relationships, create new ones, and help us bridge divides. And so what the Come Together Music Project does is we pull together folks from different backgrounds, perhaps, maybe who on the surface don't seem to have a whole lot in common. Maybe sometimes they're friends. So, I might invite my co-panelists here in the room to join one day. But what we would do is we would present each of our guests with a series of questions that they would respond to with a song. And what I find is, and then we would hear from that song. So we might say, hey, what's a song that reminds you of where you grew up? And then Maryam would tell us her song. We'd listen to it for 30, 45 seconds and then hear a little bit about why. And every time I've done this, whether on the podcast in that format or in person, I've done a series of live events as well. We find that there are connections that get made, common ground that we find in the most unexpected places. The music's always phenomenal because the music, I think, lets us find a vulnerability that we wouldn't otherwise, right? It's really hard to talk about. I mean, I had a conversation with a conservative and a progressive about the Second Amendment because we asked for a song that they associated with COVID.
Oh, wow.
We never would have gotten there had we sort of come at it straight on. So I'm really excited to pursue this. It's just a passion project. But I think it's a valuable one. I really do believe that. We're also going to be doing some work, so stay tuned. We'll be launching a series with TEDx Nashville coming up in 2026, and we'll be doing some events.
I like the sound of it.
In person.
We'll come together. That's lifting the mood, and we're going to maybe just go around the horn here with some smile stories as we take our last 2 minutes here. So here's the story that's making me smile. I'll start. My man crush Zach Top won New Artist of the Year at the CMA Awards last night. I do not listen to a ton of country music, but when I do, I want it to sound like the country music I heard when I was growing up. I'm not sure how Zach could be from Washington State. He is. We don't hold it against him. Love his voice. He's lights out on the guitar. Glad he was being recognized. But here's what really made me smile. I've never seen this before. He accepted his award with a beer can in his hand on stage. If you've heard his music, this might not surprise you, but it really made me smile. Who wants to go next?
Is that legal?
I don't know, but it happened
last
night.
You can't drink beer on
the stage.
On television.
I think somehow you probably can. Maryam.
Oh gosh, smile story. I don't know. My kid makes me smile.
I like that.
Time.
I like
all
that.
All the time.
Shaka.
Yeah. Okay. So this one might not sound like a smile story at first. Just this morning, a friend of mine, Judy, passed away. She was 80 years old. And I got to see her last night. Some friends, we went over and we saw her in hospice and spent some time. But the last time that she was really alert was about a week ago. And it's when some friends from church went over and they sang to her. So see what music does. They sang to her and she perked up and sang along with them. And that was the last sort of moment. And I like to think that, even in that moment, she was singing some things that she knew were true. Pretty amazing.
I love that. Well, listen, music's what's making us smile today. Pat Nolan, Shaka Mitchell, Maryam Abolfazli, thank you so much for helping us to think through the news this hour. Hope you'll join us again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville's a production of Nashville Public Radio. Today's episode produced and directed by Mary Mancini, Josh Deepin on the phones, board operator Liv Lombardi. The masterminds behind our theme music are Larange and Namir Blade. The conversation does not have to end here. You can comment or tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message. The number, it's different than the number you call in on the air. It's 615-751-2500. Got a lovely message yesterday about our tariff show. Thank you so much for the encouragement. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer. Go in peace.
Davidson County Clerk's Office with a reminder that most vehicle registrations and renewals can be done online, by mail, or at one of their area kiosk locations, including Green Hills, Plaza Mariachi, Southeast Branch Library, Bellevue Library, Donaldson Library,